What's up, YouTube? FedEx Cup playoffs. One of the favorites has to be Rory McIlroy. And today on the YouTube channel, it's leg day. Because if we're talking about Rory McIlroy, we're talking about driver, and we're talking about verticals, okay? The amount of force he applies into the ground and pushes up from the ground through the golf ball to produce all of that speed and distance. Easy setup today. You're just gonna need an alignment rod, which I have right here. I'll show you what I'm doing with that in a second. But basically, 3D research has told me this. If you're familiar with the P system, we are talking about P5. That would be lead arm parallel on the downswing. A very key position, and a key position for Rory McIlroy in the downswing to create speed in the club head. Let's talk about address, and then let's talk about 5. What do those two things really have in common? Well, at address, somewhat, the hips are level-ish, okay? There might be some discrepancy there. The knee flex is similar at address, okay? These are flexed similarly, okay? The reason that's important is because at no other point, except maybe 5, will that be the same. In other words, when you go into your backswing, your knee flex is ever changing, which means that trail knee straightens up a little bit. Not straight, but straightens. The lead knee flexes more. This puts my pelvis at a slant. Then what happens is I transition the club, hopefully like Rory McIlroy, and I get into a shallow squat position. So what's a shallow squat position? Well, if you've ever done a deadlift at a gym, hopefully you had good form. It was kind of like this, wasn't it? All right? So when I transition the club, I get in the shallow squat position. Well, interestingly enough, this will also be in 3D when my hips are levelish and my knees are close to the same amount of flex. Again, that had only happened previous at address. Sasha McKenzie really helped me with this to understand the importance of P5 in the golf swing for speed creation. Interestingly enough, this will be the most amount of vertical pressure on the lead side. After that, that will dissipate, and I am in pure rotary and vertical motion from there. Now, we talked about McIlroy, and there's a lot of guys jumping off the ground. Justin Thomas, for example, which we did a video on earlier. Justin Thomas is completely off the ground. Does he have more verticals than Rory McIlroy? Not necessarily. Just because he's off the ground doesn't necessarily mean you have more verticals. In other words, you get to unload what you load. So it is all in that shallow squat. So if I'm going up to the top, I transition down. If I'm Rory McIlroy, I actually lower more than Justin Thomas. That way I can push up through impact, actually maybe more vertical force than he does because he didn't load or lower as much. Begs the question. All right, Jake, all this science stuff's awesome. I just want to hit the ball further. How do I train it? First things first, use an alignment rod right here. I got it in the ground at an angle. And the reason that this is interesting is because I'm going to get into that deadlift position, and where the stick is actually the lowest point of the hands. So it's actually going to be right after 5 and almost 6, right where the lowest point of the hands would be, which is right by the trail thigh. So there's 5, right? Lead arm parallel. Now I'm going to go to 6, where my lowest point of the hands are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push up from the ground as hard as I can and pull that stick, not necessarily actually towards the target, but up and away from me and around me as fast as possible. Here we go. So go up to the top, lead arm parallel down to 6, and then go just like that. That will give me the feeling of launching my lead side up and out of the way to pull that stick in the ground. Now that you have that feeling, let's hit the driver and try to feel some vertical. Again, probably 90 yards behind Rory McIlroy, but pretty darn good for me, and it'll be pretty darn good for you too. Increase your verticals to increase your speed. It is all about the shallow squat. You get to unload what you load. So lower yourself in transition all the way down to 5 and then push up from the ground. I know that'll help you. See ya.